Welcome to the Deep Dive. We cut through the noise, get you those essential insights. Today, we're looking at something many of us, sort of took for granted. Ford leading the charge in American EVs. The F-150 Lightning, that kind of thing. But what if that story isn't quite right? What if the numbers, the actual data, tell us something? Something different, more surprising even. You actually pushed us on this. We got a really interesting question asking if Ford, maybe like some of the big European car makers, is falling behind Tesla and the Chinese EV makers, so far behind that you wondered if they might even disappear. Like, remember the European phone giants versus the US and China? A really bold question. And what we found digging into this suggests, yeah, we are seeing massive shifts, but it's definitely not a simple story of disappearing.
No, it really isn't. That's what's so fascinating here. It's not just win or lose. Our sources, they show Ford is making a big strategic adjustment, not necessarily abandoning ship, but definitely changing course. So today, we'll unpack Ford's evolving EV strategy, and we'll contrast it with GM, which is taking a really, really different, much more aggressive path. And then we'll look at what all this means for the bigger picture, the global EV race. Tesla, the big Chinese players. We've drawn on quite a bit here: industry analysis, company statements, expert takes from places like Angelo Ilassi on LinkedIn, Torque News, the EV Report, Automotive Dive, Clean Technica, a real mix.
Exactly. And that initial image of Ford, the F-150 Lightning, the Mustang Mach-E, it really did grab headlines, didn't it? It felt like they were out front, pushing hard.
Yeah, definitely captured the excitement.
But then you dig into the sources, like you said, and this current idea of Ford being lean and focused, well, it starts to sound less like leadership and more like what some analysts are calling an unexpected retreat. It's quite a shift from that initial perception.
And the numbers, well, they really back that up. Torque News has the specifics. Ford sold about 34,000 EVs year to date in 2025. That's actually down almost 12% from last year.
Down, wow.
Yeah, down. And Q2 was even sharper, about 16,400 EVs sold. That's a 31% drop compared to Q2 last year.
31%, okay.
If you break it down, it was roughly 21,800 Mustang Mach as just over 13,000 F-150 Lightnings and about 4,100 E-Transits. It's clearly not a picture of explosive growth. CEO Jim Farley even called the EV journey humbling in Automotive Dive.
Humbling. That's a strong word from a CEO. Tells you something about the internal pressure, I guess.
Oh, definitely. And the financial side really drives that home. Ford Model E, that's their EV division, lost $1.1 billion in Q2 2024.
Billion.
And that loss was pretty much the same as the year before. So for the first half of 2024, the total loss hit $2.5 billion. They're actually projecting a full year loss between $5 and $5.5 billion for the EV unit.
Oof, that's staggering.
It is. And Farley explained why. With traditional gas engines, bigger vehicles usually mean bigger profits, right?
Right. Trucks, SUVs.
But with EVs, he says it's exactly the opposite, because bigger EVs need bigger batteries, and those batteries drive up costs massively. So connecting back to that listener concern, these kinds of numbers absolutely fuel worries about whether legacy automakers can really keep up, especially with the costs involved in this transition. They're trying to pivot, but it's costing them dearly right now.
That's a really tough situation for Ford's EV side.
Yeah.
But okay, well, Ford is kind of tapping the brakes, regrouping. Their big rival in Detroit, GM, seems to be flooring it. What's their play?
It's such a stark contrast, isn't it? GM's strategy is described as scale and saturation. Basically, flood the zone with EVs.
Flood the zone, okay.
They now offer, get this, 13 different EV models across Chevy, Cadillac, and GMC. 13. Everything from the, more affordable Equinox EV and Blazer EV up to the Silverado EV truck, the Cadillac Lyriq, the huge Escalade IQ, the Vistique, even the GMC Hummer EV, a massive spread. And their numbers reflect that push. Around 78,000 EVs sold year-to-date 2025. That's up 111%.
Wow, double the sales.
Exactly. Q2 sales alone were over 46,000. The Equinox EV by itself sold about 27,000 units just in the first half of the year.
Okay, so while Ford is down 31% in Q2, GM is up massively. That must come down to their platform.
Yeah, it's absolutely. The Ultium battery platform is huge for them. Sources call it a game changer because it's designed to be scalable and modular from the start.
You're right.
Think of it like a flexible EV toolkit. It lets them roll out all those different models, 13 of them, across different brands and price points, but all sharing that common base. It boosts efficiency, sure, but maybe more importantly, it allows faster innovation in software and autonomous features.
Ah, software. That's key.
Crucial. It's an area where Ford, by their own admission, has maybe been a bit slower. And this momentum actually put GM on an upward trajectory alongside China's BYD in global EV growth for Q2 2025.
Alongside BYD. That's serious company.
It is. It really challenges that idea that Tesla is the only American player making big waves globally. Plus, you have GM's big investment in Cruise, their self-driving unit. That signals they're looking beyond just selling cars. They see software-defined vehicles as the industry's new frontier.
That Ultium platform really does sound like a powerful engine for them, but launching 13 models so quickly, ramping up production like that, does that carry risks, like stretching themselves too thin, maybe quality control issues down the line? We've seen that happen before, right?
That's a really good point. The sources we looked at focus more on the strategy and the numbers. They don't explicitly detail GM's risks in that way. But you're right, history definitely shows rapid expansion can bring challenges. Scaling production smoothly, maintaining quality across so many new models. That's a massive operational challenge for any automaker. It's certainly something worth keeping an eye on as they keep growing.
Definitely. Okay, so given these very different paths and Ford's sobering financials, how are they actually recalibrating? Is it really a retreat, or is there a smarter, maybe longer-term strategy emerging?
Well, Ford's updated strategy, the one they announced around September 2024, it definitely signals a shift. The goal now is a capital-efficient and profitable EV business. They're not giving up on electric, not at all. But they are diversifying, learning from those early, costly lessons.
Diversifying how?
Okay, so they've got plans for an all-new commercial van in 2026. That plays to their strengths. Then, 2 advanced pickup trucks in 2027. One is a mid-sized electric pickup coming out of that secretive California Skunk Works team we've heard about. The other is Project T3. That's their next-gen big electric truck. Supposed to have things like bi-directional charging, really slick aerodynamics.
Okay, trucks and vans, that makes sense for Ford.
Right, but here's the really interesting part. They're also planning a new family of 3-row SUVs, but these will now incorporate hybrid technologies.
Hybrids, not all electric.
Exactly. They've explicitly canceled the all-electric 3-row SUVs they had planned for that segment. That's a huge pivot. It shows they're reevaluating based on cost and, likely, what they think buyers actually want or can afford in those larger vehicle classes right now.
Wow. Canceling planned all-electric SUVs for hybrids. That really signals a major rethink of the EV-only push, especially for bigger, more expensive vehicles where those battery costs really bite.
It absolutely does. And related to that, on the cost and tech side, they're leaning into hybrids as a strategic buffer, particularly where pure EVs are just too expensive to make profitably right now. It's not just about cutting costs, it's about acknowledging that for many people, affordability and maybe range anxiety are still big factors. They're moving away from just assuming bigger batteries are always better.
Okay, so hybrids are part of the cost strategy. What else?
Batteries are key. They're developing LFP lithium iron phosphate batteries. These use cheaper, more available materials. They're generally safer, last longer, and could cut charging costs by maybe 15–20%. And they're bringing production home, moving some Mach-E battery making from Poland to Michigan next year to get those Inflation Reduction Act benefits. Their Blue Oval SK joint venture in Kentucky will make cells for the E-Transit and Lightning starting mid-2025. And they plan to make LFP batteries themselves in Michigan by 2026.
Localizing supply chains. Makes sense.
Right. And all this is underpinned by that Skunk Works team developing a completely new, affordable EV platform designed for cost-effectiveness, but also with enhanced digital features. It's meant to be flexible for multiple types of vehicles.
This Skunk Works team, it sounds really different. Doug Field, Ford's chief EV and digital officer, talks about simplicity as the blueprint. It sounds almost like going back to basics, like the original Model T's efficiency.
That's exactly the comparison they're making. Field's team isn't just trying to trim costs on existing parts. They're trying to fundamentally rethink how a car is built to make it simpler and cheaper overall, competing with newer, maybe more agile manufacturers on process innovation.
Right, the process itself.
It's a small, secretive group, protected from the usual corporate stuff, really trying to challenge how things are normally done. They're focused on the total cost and efficiency, not just pinching pennies on individual components. Field has this great line, physics is not proprietary. They're investing heavily in things like unicasting.
Unicasting.
Yeah, imagine casting huge structural parts of the car body out of aluminum in one single piece, instead of welding together dozens of smaller stamped steel pieces.
Okay, that sounds simpler. Less joining, less complexity.
Massively simpler. The results they're claiming are pretty wild. They say they've cut out 3/4 of the parts, 2/3 of the welds, half the fasteners in a pickup body. Get this. They removed over 4,000 feet of wiring that's like 3/4 of a mile compared to their first electric SUV. It's a total redesign.
4,000 feet of wire.
Mhm.
Gone. That's incredible. It's like they're rewriting the manufacturing playbook.
They kind of are. Even the assembly process is different. Forget the traditional moving assembly line. They're using what they call an assembly tree. Basically, build the vehicle in 3 main chunks, front section, rear section, and the structural battery core, and then bring those modules together.
Interesting. And the goal of all this simplification?
The big goals are get similar range to competitors, but using a battery that's maybe up to 1/3 smaller that saves huge cost. And target a 5-year cost of ownership that's actually lower than owning a 3-year-old Tesla Model Y.
Lower than a used Model Y. That's ambitious.
Very. The first vehicle using this new platform and process, it's going to be that midsize 4-door electric pickup truck, supposedly with more passenger space than a Toyota RAV4. And critically, they keep stressing the focus on the digital realm. That's where they see the primary battleground, especially against competitors from China.
So better, simpler manufacturing, smaller batteries, focus on digital. But who are they actually aiming these new EVs at?
Yeah, that's the crucial question, right? What market segment is Ford targeting now? The sources strongly suggest they are not trying to go head-to-head with Tesla or the Chinese makers everywhere, especially not in the high-end, large vehicle space anymore.
So where then?
They seem to be zeroing in on the sub-premium range. Think maybe $30,000 to $40,000. It's a segment where there's potentially less intense competition right now and maybe more volume potential.
Okay, the middle ground.
Sort of. A good example might be the Ford Puma Gen-E. That's the electric version of their popular small SUV in Europe. They're aiming for competitive pricing there, maybe 300, 375 kilometers of real-world range. It's for the B segment, small, practical. It suggests Ford is being pretty realistic here, adapting to the market reality where high EV costs are a barrier and maybe people want more affordable, practical options. They're finding a niche they think they can win in.
So stepping back, this isn't just Ford versus GM playing out in Detroit, is it? One source put it bluntly. The real showdown isn't Ford versus GM. It's Detroit versus the world. And right now, the world is moving faster.
That sums it up perfectly. We have to remember, as the sources state, competitors from outside the U.S. and, in particular, China, currently enjoy a marked cost advantage.
Why is that?
Well, it's complex, but factors include things like vertically integrated supply chains. They control more of the process from raw materials up. Massive manufacturing scale helps, too. And in some cases, significant state support. It all adds up to a cost structure that legacy automakers in the US and Europe are really struggling to match right now. And it lets them bring vehicles to market with fresh designs and new digital experiences at lower prices. That puts immense pressure on everyone else.
So what does this Detroit versus world dynamic mean for you, the person actually thinking about buying a car? Does it mean more choice? Maybe better prices eventually?
Potentially, yes. GM's approach, that flood the zone strategy, definitely means more choice across different price points and styles, from affordable SUVs to luxury trucks. Ford's strategy, focusing on cost effectiveness and that sub-premium segment, could bring more affordable, high-value options to the market eventually, especially with that new platform.
But it's still early days in some ways, isn't it? Despite all this activity, all the billions being spent, EVs are still, what, under 7% of the total U.S. car market as of Q2 2025.
That's right. It's still just under 7%, which frankly is a surprisingly slow uptake compared to predictions from a few years ago. It really highlights the hurdles all automakers face: cost, charging infrastructure, consumer habits, and getting the mass market fully on board with EVs.
So lots of different strategies playing out.
Definitely. And it makes you think, right? Is Ford's leaner, more focused approach the smart way to manage costs and target profitability, even if it means potentially slower growth or less market share initially? Or can GM sustain its incredibly rapid expansion and heavy tech investment without hitting bumps in the road, like production delays or quality issues? There are big questions around both strategies. It's a high-stakes game for both of them.
Which brings us back to that listener's provocative question. Is Ford going to disappear like some old tech giants facing new competition? Our deep dive suggests, well, it's more complicated than that.
Yeah, definitely not disappearing. Ford is clearly reevaluating, retooling, and repositioning itself. They're making a conscious strategic choice not to fight Tesla and the Chinese EV giants on every single front, especially in the larger, more expensive segments right now. Instead, they're playing to their strengths, commercial vehicles, trucks, and aiming this new tech, the simpler manufacturing, the LFP batteries, at creating affordable, high-value EVs. That focus on the sub-premium market, on cost-effective digital integration, it shows a path to stay relevant, maybe even thrive, rather than fade away. It's a bet on smart adaptation over sheer scale, perhaps.
So in this incredibly fast-moving auto world, what's ultimately going to define success? Is it just selling the most EVs? Is it having the absolute cutting-edge tech in every single car? Or is it something else, maybe the agility to adapt quickly, to innovate cheaply, and to find those profitable niches where you can really win? What do you think will make an automaker truly successful over the next decade? Especially knowing that, as our sources say, the world is moving faster. Something to think about.